What's up everyone, we're back at it again. My name is Brad and welcome back to my channel. What I want to start to do is I want to start journaling some of the plant progress that has happened throughout this growing season. I want to do this week by week because I feel like if I don't do it week by week, chances are something might happen, and if it's cool, I'll miss it. So there are two updates that I want to give you today, and one has to do with the Monstera Thai constellation that I got, and another has to do with an interesting cutting that I've started, and that is the Philodendron White Knight. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here is my Monstera Thai constellation. I'm going to give you a close-up look at what this plant looks like. But if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I posted a video about the Monstera deliciosa Thai constellation cutting that I got, and I was interested to see how fast it would grow. I also showed that there was a bit of swelling in one of the vines of the Monstera Thai constellation, so I knew that I potentially would get some growth pretty soon, and it's happened. So let's adjust the camera and let me give you a close-up of this Monstera Thai constellation. When looking at this Monstera Thai constellation, you'll see that I have this propped up against a moss pole. The reason why I have it propped up against the moss pole is because I want to encourage larger leaves. Typically, and especially true with the Monstera, you want to give it a moss pole because the moss pole is actually what encourages the larger leaves as well as the fenestrations. So I gave it this moss pole, and it's loosely staked on it, as you can see, very loosely staked, because I didn't want to do any kind of choking of the main vine, and it hasn't yet put off any aerial roots or embedded itself into the moss pole, but I do think that it's going to happen as it matures. Now, as I rotate the Monstera Thai constellation, you'll see that this is the swelling that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago that has essentially erupted a new leaf. So the swelling occurred on this particular leaf, and as you can see, this new leaf has just erupted. And if you can even take a closer look, you can see that beautiful variegation that's going to form. So I have that green right where my thumb is, and then right above the thumb I have a lighter color, and right above the thumb not my thumb, my finger, I have more green with some speckling as well of that white cream color. So the Monstera Thai constellation is looking absolutely fantastic, and it actually seems as if this is putting on growth more quickly than my Monstera deliciosa upstairs. So I don't know why that is. I'm giving this bright indirect sunlight. I'm a bit afraid to scorch these leaves since it is such a young infant plant, and I haven't yet fed this plant either. So it is interesting that I have this leaf erupt right here. So this is fantastic. Again, keeping this in a terracotta pot because I want to reduce the chance of overwatering, even though I'm pretty good with my watering. And it is just in a nice, well-draining mix. The mix that I like to use is 50% potting soil with a 50% perlite. That allows the ultimate drainage, but still retaining just enough moisture to actually feed the plants. So this is the Monstera Thai constellation. If you like videos like this and want to continue to see more videos about houseplant tips and tricks, and maybe even some journaling, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. It's totally free and it would mean a lot. Thank you so much. Now let's get back into looking at these two plant updates. Now, this one is a bit trickier to show off, so I just put it in the saucer and brought it out so you could actually see it more clearly. I'm not going to hold it up, but this is a cutting of a Philodendron White Knight. Now, there's a bit of backstory behind this. Last season, I recorded a video about my Philodendron White Knight that I purchased, and when I purchased it, it didn't look too healthy. I purchased it from a big box store. It didn't look too healthy. It was a very good price, so I said, hey, why not? When I purchased the Philodendron White Knight, it was very waterlogged, so I decided to change the soil, and then I also placed the plant outside. I placed it outside, I gave it bright direct sunlight, and it did well initially. However, after a while, it actually started to decay. So that was a bit disappointing. But during that decay, I was actually able to save this particular cutting. And this cutting has been in water for about 2 weeks. And as you can see, it is starting to form roots. Finally. So that is super exciting. And I want to talk a little bit about how to do cuttings, how to take care of cuttings, because there are a couple of schools of thoughts, and one school of thought will help you get roots more quickly than the other. First, let's talk about how I have this set up here in order to really hold up this very tiny cutting. So what I've done is I basically have a rubber band that is wrapped around this particular container twice, and the cutting is just sitting right in between that rubber band. So the cutting is a bit wider than what this rubber band distance-wise is, so it is able to support itself on the rubber band due to that. Now, when it comes to how to get the best results for your cutting, when you take the cutting, what you want to allow is you want to allow for the bottom of your cutting to essentially callus over. So that can take anywhere from a couple of hours to a day. Usually doesn't take that long, but if you want to be safe, you give it a full day. What a callus is basically a wound that forms over the cutting. So you will have no more sap that is dripping from the bottom of the cutting, and it'll give you a nice solid surface underneath. So you'll know what a callus looks like. I actually posted the video about when I did a topping of my Ficus altice in the yellow gem, where I show you what the callus looks like. So if you need more information on that, be sure to check out that video. Now, when it comes to the container, it is ideal to use a container that isn't clear like this. You typically want to use a container that is either green or brown, and that is because when you have that darker container, it prevents the potentiality of an algae bloom. So when you get that green yuck and muck in your water, that's typically because you have a clear container. And when you give it that sunlight, if that water has algae in it, you'll get an algae bloom, and then you have green, disgusting yuck. But I have a clear container here. The water is not filtered, it's straight out of the sink, but no algae bloom. Historically, I've never had an algae bloom, so that really wasn't an issue for me. The second thing to keep note of is when should you change out the water? This is the key. When you first place your cutting in the water, you should not change the water out weekly. Instead, what you need to do is you need to wait for root development to start first. The reason is because when you take your cutting, hormones that exist within your particular cut are being focused at the bottom of your cutting and also are being excreted into the water. And these hormones are called axons. These axons essentially are what is responsible for creating this root growth that you see down here. If you decide to change out the water, you will get your roots to develop. However, they will develop more slowly because the more hormones that exist in this area around the cutting, as well as in the water itself, the more quickly your roots will develop. What you should instead do is you should instead do a topping off of the water. So even if you look here, you'll see that my water has a film on top of it. I'm not concerned about the film. This film will not do anything to harm the cutting itself. Now, once you get your roots to develop to a couple of inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, that is when you want to do your weekly water changes. If instead you want to opt not to do the weekly water changes, what you should instead do at that point is you should instead put your cutting in soil. The reason why you want to put your cutting in soil, that is if you're doing a typical soil type crop and not doing any kind of semi-hydro or hydroponic setup, is because when these roots are developing, you have two different types of roots. You have water roots and you have soil roots. If you want soil roots, the more quickly you can get this root formation to be in soil, the more quickly and more easily that transition is going to be from your water root to your soil root. So keep that in mind when it comes to your cuttings and coming up with your cuttings. A lot of times people have rotting that occurs at the very end, and that rotting is typically a result of not letting your cutting callus over. Sometimes it takes people a long time to actually get root development, and that delay in root development is typically caused by changing out your water weekly as opposed to letting your cutting just sit in its existing water and just topping off. So again, just keep that in mind. And I really wanted to just show off the roots here. I believe in about maybe a week and a half, my roots will be long enough to put this in soil. And once that happens, I'll be sure to take you along. So again, here's my cutting. It didn't go as planned last growing season, but luckily I was able to save this little cutting here, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get a nice, healthy Philodendron white knight to really start pushing out growth this coming up season. And I really, really hope that I was able to preserve the variegation of it as well. It looks like, if you can see here, I have a little bit of white. We'll see what happens. I'm really enjoying the progress that has happened so far with my Monstera Thai constellation as well as with my Philodendron white knight. I'm interested to see how fast the Monstera Thai constellation will grow relative to the regular Monstera deliciosa. I'm also interested to see how long will it take for my Philodendron white knight roots to actually develop to an ideal length before I place it in some soil. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.